Welcome to Northpointe Plus. This is episode 157.
With our guest host.
She's back.
She's back.
Yes. I'm Sylvia. This is Rick.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
If you don't know the backstory, Sylvia was on staff for
almost 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And
now I'm just a church attender.
It is a little weird thing to just see you and Jake sitting in the back hanging out.
And then like run out after. I still have people ask me stuff and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
But you know where to ask. You know who to ask.
Oh, I point them in the right direction. That's for sure. I push it on.
So how is life on the farmette?
It's going really well. So I've been doing lots of reading. We're kind of preparing our house again for foster kids. And then I have told some people my embarrassing truth that I've been playing pickleball in my free time.
Why is it embarrassing?
I don't know. Like if you've ever watched pickleball, it's like not intense to watch. It's just like ding, ding, ding.
Well, until it starts going smash, 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 smash.
But like when you really, and I guess this could go with any sport, honestly, but at the end of the day, it's like this is a wiffle ball. And I'm chasing after it like my life depends on it. But so that's what I've been doing.
So we're going to initiate pickleball courts at Northpointe, and Sylvia's going to be in charge of the pickleball ministry.
And if you guys put holes in the ground for volleyball poles, we could do that too. I don't know if you have those down there.
I don't think we ever had holes in the gym, but I think that we had bases so that they fit in.
Yep, I'll be the Northpointe sport extraordinaire. You
could be the sports minister.
We'll see when that day comes. You got my number. But anyway,
and you could,
nobody wants.
You could do that with foster care kids.
Bring them with for sure.
That'd be easy.
We'll see. I mean, the people, you'll have to just tell everybody like, hey, pickleball's happening. And then we'll see how many people get excited.
So when do you want to start?
So, Rick, you spoke on Sunday.
Some things never change, do they?
Well, yeah. So you spoke on Sunday.
I did, yeah. And you were in the back row.
Oh, yeah. I was listening very intently because I knew I was doing this.
How is it in the back row?
I like it.
I hate it.
Really? It's
too many distractions.
I was just going to say my Nana and Papa, Grandma and Grandpa, they sit in the back, and they commented this week that a lot of people in second service, don't want to call you out, but a lot of people were getting up to go to the bathroom. And I was like, you guys got to sit in the front.
Yeah.
But I think I've told you before, my mom always had, like, I'm the oldest of 4 girls. She always had like baby in our old church.
Yep.
Always had babies in the nursery. Nursery was right out the doors. And so moms
would
just kind of sit in the back, and then people would come get you or for help or whatever.
Yeah.
We kind of just do that. I don't know. I sit wherever, though. Like, I move around a lot.
So I should talk to Jake and tell Jake he needs to sit front and center.
Oh, he follows me sometimes. So, like,
Sylvia, you need to sit front and center.
Maybe. But I like to see who's there, who I can run after and talk to after, that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I always have
to
sit in the same spot.
Maybe I'm helping you guys. You can look at me while you're speaking, and I'll look very like.
Sometimes you're talking.
That is not true. That is
writing notes.
No, that is not true. Or maybe what I'm saying to Jake is like, "Wow, he's really good. Rick's on his A game today."
Okay,
I'm sure that's what everybody says.
Yes, yeah, I'm sure. So why are you looking at Sue for affirmation?
I was just wondering what she thought. But
some of you watching the podcast are saying, "Are you going to say anything that matters today?"
It's coming. It's coming. We're getting there. Whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
A little recap, just of the whole message.
So we start a new series called A Battleground State.
Yep.
It's coming from Ephesians chapter 6.
Cool bumper video, by the way.
You like it? Hey, shout out to Carter Bohr.
Yep.
He found it. He modified it, fixed it with our title. He did a great job. Like it. Although it is really interesting that all of our bumper videos have very dynamic theatrical music. Yeah. It's like, it's fun. It does get you ready to
here.
It gets you ready to preach. Impending doom coming.
It's like a pump up song.
That's it. Yeah. So we started, series comes from Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 18. A little bit of challenge in there to memorize those 8 verses over the next 8 weeks. Really, really good thing. And really focused on verse 10. Finally, brothers, no, not brothers. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. And I was talking to Jake this morning, Jake Howard, not Jake Jarvis, and said it is going to be really interesting to spend a week on each component because it is easier to do several together because then you're saying a little bit about more things. We're really going to try and dive in to the content focused on each particular piece of the spiritual armor and go. And so this week I really wanted to just kind of lay the foundation. And it really is, I didn't say this in the message, but I think it really is this sense of in the first century and even in the Middle Ages, there was stuff that you put on before you ever put on the armor. You had like a garment that you put on underneath to get ready, not like the chainmail and that kind of stuff, but you always had stuff on underneath. And I think that verse 10 is really that. It's what gets you ready for the spiritual armor that we're going to talk about. Be strong in the Lord in His mighty power. And so I really wanted to kind of focus and say, okay, what's it look like to be strong? How do you get strong? And what does it not look like?
Yeah.
What are some areas where we try to be strong in other ways? This is not a question because we didn't have any questions, so write some questions. But I heard a guy speak, and I talked about this, but I didn't flesh it out in as much as I really would have liked to. The guy was speaking, I think it was to preachers, but basically he said the three areas where men are most vulnerable is to find their identity, their power, their value in money, in position, and in looks. And what the guy who spoke said was, if you've got a man who's good looking, now as I think back through this, it said it made him most vulnerable to sexual temptation. Because if you've got a guy who is very good looking, that's going to draw women to him. If he's good looking and he has positional power, that's going to draw lots of women to him. And if he's a good looking man with positional power and money, he's really got to have, we always have to have guards up. We'll be talking about that in the series, but that's where you're incredibly vulnerable. So, me, we don't have, I'm not worried.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know what you were saying at first. Oh man.
Deb, where are you?
I do. I want
for my wife. Yeah. We need to have.
I love Deb.
Deb on the podcast. So, anyways, just the whole deal that we try and find strength in all kinds of things, in wealth, in power, in our physical appearance, and that's not where true strength comes from.
Right.
And that being strong in the Lord, lots of stuff were going through my mind as I prepped the message, and I kept thinking how. When you read about people who have been historically strong in very difficult circumstances, it's always been because they knew who they were in their relationship with God. And their relationship with God is what sustained them through whatever was going on. So my mind immediately goes to Corrie ten Boom because I just finished a book on World War II. It wasn't about Corrie ten Boom, but it was about this family. This is a side derail the story here. When we were in Oregon on vacation, in Portland, Oregon, there is the largest bookstore, used bookstore in the country.
Oh, nice.
So we went, and it's like multiple levels and huge rooms, and we kind of wandered. We didn't buy anything. Came out, we're driving away on to our next thing, and Deb said, I said, you didn't buy anything? And she said, well, I had one book in my hand, but I thought, let's not buy it. And so I went and I got it on Audible, and then we listened to it during the trip, which was really, really fun. But it's called The Unfinished Letter, and it's about this family that was in Austria that wrote a letter to a family with the same last name in the U.S. to try and get them to sponsor them to get them out of Austria.
During World War II, you said?
It's 1937, 38, prior to
before.
that. And the letter had been handed down to the people who got it. The people who got it didn't do anything with it and put it in a trunk and just found it in 2004. And so this lady who ended up with the letter was a journalist. And so she tracks down the descendants of this family, of the family that was in Austria. Really, really interesting story. How did I get there? So we've been reading that about World War II, and I just kept thinking about the Ten Booms and the people that they hid from the Nazis, and how much of that, how many people stayed strong even in the midst of the gas chambers, in the midst of all of the stuff. I just finished another book that was by the guy who wrote the biography, Eric Metaxas, about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He wrote the biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a German preacher that ends up being executed by Hitler in a concentration camp. So being strong in the Lord is what gets you through everything. And if you're not, you just break down.
Yeah, something to add on to that too, with a lot of people, I think looking at those situations, you're like, wow, I could never do that if it was me. And you're just like, well, yeah, like you never know until you're in it though. Like, and that's when you really have to rely on your faith and just your relationship with Jesus. Like, you know.
Can we go there with you?
Sure.
No, I legitimately, can we go there?
Yeah, that's fine.
So lots of people would say, how long's it been? 3 months?
Yeah.
3 months ago, you had a baby. The baby lived a day.
Yep.
And died.
Yes.
And I think most people would say I could never survive that.
Yeah, I've had and it's funny because I just like have been journaling every day, reading my Bible, and a lot of people say stuff like that, or like, wow, you're so strong. And I felt sometimes I was really good about it, and whoever I was with, I'm like, oh, it's Jesus, it's nothing to do with me. Like that has nothing to do with me. And then one time I didn't say that, and I was just like, oh, well, yeah, like, okay. And I felt so like not convicted, but just like, why didn't I say that? That was such a good time to talk about that. But with that specific friend and friend group, I've said it so many times, like like other times, but it was just so funny that stuck out to me. And the armor of God is something that I've been like looking into a lot. So when you were talking about it, I'm like, oh, good. Like this is good exciting. Stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I've never had anything in my life. I've lived such a blessed life. Like, you know, you have bad days and whatnot, but never to the point where you, my whole life, like I had to rely on God this whole time, and you know, the simplest things that you don't think about or you take for granted, I should say. But when something bad happens, and to have your faith, like, and it's funny too, because I was one of those people, like, I could never do that. Like, I could never go through that. But you do, and it's only because of Jesus. I don't know how people do it without him.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's funny because you think sometimes about just making it through the circumstances, whatever that is, whether it's death or, you know, when your world is shattered because of a job loss and, you know, the whole position stuff gets taken away, whatever it is, you kind of make it through that. But sometimes the part that's the most demanding to be strong in the Lord is like after it, when it's like, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just really want to shut the curtains. Just lay here and die.
Yeah. And I am thankful because I think it's just the way that God made me too. Some people would say that I'm a little stubborn or competitive. I don't know.
Who would say that?
I don't know. Just some people. But like right now too, it's just a crazy moment. And it's just my age. I'm surrounded by all my friends who are pregnant. My friend just had a baby on Saturday. And so it's like I am kind of shoved in the face, like, you know, with these things that I don't get to have. And like I don't get to hide. And I could, I could.
Right. You could avoid it all.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I think it was just like a couple weeks after our son Micah passed that I went to a baby shower for my friend, and it's awkward at first, and I talked with you about it, and really you just lay it all out there. Like, hey, I'm okay. I actually love to talk about him. Like, I might get sad, but that's normal. Anybody would get sad. So we're just rolling with it. But it has opened so many cool opportunities for me to share Jesus with others.
Yeah.
And I guess this is kind of off track a little bit, but again, I've been reading my Bible every day, praying. That's just what you do. I feel better when I do it. Yeah. And I was praying over and over, like, please let this situation be used for good. Like, use me in this situation, because this can't just be for nothing. And I want to be able to talk with others about you. And I was talking to Jacob one day. It was funny. As I was journaling, I said, I was doing a devotional too, and it's like, share your frustrations with God. And I was never like angry with God that my son passed. I was happy that he was in heaven, and nobody can take better care of my son than Jesus. So I'm but I was writing, you know what? I'm frustrated because my prayers aren't getting answered. Like, I don't have answers in all this. And then as I was writing it, it's like, you can see my thought process. I said, well, actually, I'm just not getting verbal confirmation. I guess there's ways that, I've gotten to share my story. I've gotten to talk about my son with random people, and I've been listening to the Holy Spirit more. So actually he has been answering my prayers, but isn't that funny? I got my nails done a couple weeks after, and the lady asked me why I was doing it. And I just said, self-care, going on vacation. And then she asked if I had any kids. And I was like, yep, just one in heaven. And I said something about going into surgery. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. And I was like, it was a C-section. She's, oh, C-section. I was like, well, my son is in heaven, but it's okay. And she was telling, I could never. And I'm like, well, it's not me, it's Jesus. And I could tell she didn't really want to
go there.
Yeah. Fine. Like, that is totally fine. But like, I'm still going to, like, ask. That's my thing. Same thing. I got my hair done. Same thing. And I'm like, man, these people are going to think I'm crazy, but it gives you a certain kind of confidence, I guess, too, which is weird. Because in this moment, like you said, you just want to hide sometimes.
It's funny because it feels like we've drifted, but I don't think that we've drifted at all in terms of the content of the message. That during the Global Leadership Summit, we talked about the person who spoke that was a storyteller, and basically she said, in every good story there's the normal that gets established, then there's an explosion, and then there's the new normal, and that's what makes a good story. You can't have a good story without what was, what is now, and that being hopefully better, and all of the drama and trauma in the middle. And as she talked, she used a phrase that I've talked about a ton since then. She said, what people don't realize when they're in the midst of the explosion is it's just the middle. It's the middle. And that so much of the time when we experience horrible things, we think it's the end. And it's not the end, it's just the middle. And I think that's, for me, as somebody who is put in a place where I have an opportunity to counsel people a lot, I think when you have a handhold, when you're at the edge of the cliff, but you have something that you can hold on to, it gives you the ability to have the strength to get beyond the edge of the cliff or whatever. And so being strong in the Lord is recognizing, because of who God is, that our story's not done, and that when we go through trauma, it's the middle. And the only way you survive is by being strong in the Lord, in His mighty power.
And I think it's important too to have, I don't know if you just said it about the first passage, or what are we, Ephesians 6:10-18?
Yeah.
I don't know if you just said it about that, or all of these like verses that you gave us to have them just written on your heart, ready to go.
Yeah.
Honestly, with everything. But that is important because, people, I couldn't do that. It's, I can't share my story. And something we talk a lot about here at Northpointe, I know, is like sharing your story is like how you talk to people about Jesus. Yeah. And I think this has just solidified it for me. And just to kind of bring it back to what you were saying about like the men, like the money, the position, all that. you just said, that's when we're most vulnerable. And I was just thinking, I think you're the most vulnerable when everything's going nice and smooth, like everything's nice and easy.
Yep.
And looking back in my journal, I wasn't reading my Bible every day. There was patchy. We had 3 foster kids, but that's just my lame excuse, And then after that, after Micah died, it's been close to every single day, but that's because like I think I just realized like, no, I need it. Like I need my relationship with Jesus. Where before it was like, oh, it's nice to have, like it was on my terms. Like I'm just gonna, so I think when things are going good, that's when you're vulnerable because you're kind of in that lukewarm, like just.
You think you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. But I really liked the whole message. I'm like, oh gosh, it's like he's talking right to me. Which I
would if you weren't sitting on the back row.
In the back, yeah. I was too far away.
That's right.
Oh gosh, I did want to make a statement too, or a joke, or something. I don't know. I'll bring up. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Do you know whose favorite verse that is?
Jake Howard says it more than once a day.
I was looking at it. I was looking for him. I'm like, is he not laughing at this?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, the reason it's a joke is because in the office, oftentimes someone will say, "Hey, Rick," or it's more to Jake because Jake says it all the time. "Jake, can you do this? Can you run get a cup of coffee?" I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yeah, that's taking the verse a little bit out of context.
Yep. Those are like pastor jokes, though. Classic pastor jokes.
Yeah. And I do think that there are times that we apply that out of context. You have to recognize that Paul in Philippians 4 is talking about. He says right before that, I've learned how to be content whether I have a lot or whether I have a little. Mm-hmm. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength, which is like, it doesn't matter if I have lots of money in my bank account, if I have my own home, if I can do whatever, or if I'm living on the street. What matters is my relationship with Christ. Mm-hmm. And because of my relationship with Christ, I can get through whatever gets thrown my way.
So for somebody like me, like I said, I've always been in church, always grown up in church, and know a lot of these verses, never studied it though. So now I'm getting into that rhythm of doing that. I guess what my question would be is like, do you think that these verses, they're so comforting for Christians, but like, how do we translate this for non-believers who are going through a hard time or I don't know, something like that I just went through? Because like they're so comforting for me, but how do we translate that if I had a friend to go through the same thing? And I know I'm throwing you on the spot here a little bit, but
if you would have submitted the question ahead of time.
I'm thinking on the fly here.
Yeah,
okay?
That's great.
Same thing with the armor of God though too. Like I've seen a bunch of mom things that say, pray it over your kids every day before they go to school. So I guess what does that look like for people who think that we're nuts?
Well, I think you have to realize wherever people are, that's where they are. And you can't expect them to respond from a different place than they are. Mm-hmm. So I think when you have a person who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus and they go through something like you've experienced, when they go through the death of a spouse, when they go through a job loss that's traumatic, a bankruptcy, whatever it is, I think that there is a sense, and this is verse 18 of the whole armor of God, prayer. You pray for God to help you be whatever it is that they need that can draw them to God. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times it's just simply to be there, be with them, and love them. Mm-hmm. And that when you do that, what often happens, if you don't try and give answers, you get questions. And then you can have a conversation at the level that they're at. I think oftentimes as Christians, we think that we have to have all the answers and we dump them. And if we just dump the right answers, people will say, oh yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. That's not the way any of us respond to information.
Right. Well, and like the reason why I bring this up too is because I think when other people that we know that aren't, like, they don't go to church, they don't believe in Jesus, they think the Christians are wacko, then when they go through something, it's almost like or maybe all Christians shy away from it because it's like, well, this is what I would say to my friends. Like, that's given, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It gives me so much strength and comfort. I don't know what to say to you. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to say anything. I think that we just need to be there and love, be there and love them, because that communicates, I think, the nature of God more strongly than any words, because everyone perceives things differently. When Micah died, our relationship is such that there's a level of depth all the time, but also a level of humor. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I kept thinking, am I saying I don't want to tear open a wound. Sure. I don't want to press on a wound that's very real right now, but at the same time, I don't want to shy away from it. Mm-hmm. And so I think what's difficult, especially when you're dealing with death or any kind of trauma, that it's really easy to step on a landmine inadvertently if you're trying to communicate some level of truth. Yeah. Sometimes I think there is a need to speak hard truth, but rarely is it in the middle of the storm. It usually is sometime after that, because when you're in the middle of the storm, you're not thinking clearly anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not, you're not processing information, and so the thing that communicates the most is to be able to say to somebody who's lost somebody, I'm not going anywhere. As long as you need me, I'm staying here. Mm-hmm. We will make sure that there's food in your refrigerator. We'll make sure that your lawn gets cut. We'll make sure that whatever, we are here. Mm-hmm.
And I think this whole first part of the series is be strong in the Lord. And these are the hard things that we go through, or even just like as a friend trying to help somebody else out, sitting there, being quiet and just sitting in their hurt. But you are I have to rely on God even in that situation, and be strong in the Lord, because how hard is it for me to listen to some,
Well, when Micah died that morning, mm-hmm. I know everybody had to think, what do we do? Yeah. Yeah. And the people who were closest to you came and spent the day in mm-hmm. the hospital room with you, right? Mm-hmm. And loved on you and loved on Micah's body, and just having them there brought strength. Yep.
And I think too, another part of being strong in the Lord is because I think when we talk about, armor of God, it's sometimes like a pump up, like manly, armor of God, like we're going into battle, which it's true, but sometimes being strong in the Lord and being there for somebody is showing that weakness in yourself.
You're right.
I can't do this. This has nothing to do with me. I am actively asking God for help, and I am actively listening to the Holy Spirit on what to do next. And so, I don't know, sharing, it's not armor of God sometimes is cool to think about, where you are, going into battle and you're getting ready to, fight. And, but other times it's just there for protection, I guess. And then for you to be able to show weakness to others.
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
It is good stuff. Well, is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything you can think of? Like I said, I'm really excited for this series. It's hard not to skip ahead though, because technically you haven't you've talked on the armor of God, but
we haven't got there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We haven't done the typical children's ministry, put the cardboard helmet, or you draw out the pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny because just reading through the text, there's so much I want to say.
Mm-hmm. But it's you don't want to skip ahead. We're just...
Yeah.
But I like that because it forces you to pay attention. You did it this time like be strong in the Lord. Like you really picked it apart. Like let's look at the words, and I think that those are intentional. I like that because that's
you know what? Thanks. I actually had a conversation with somebody during Second Sunday yesterday. Somebody who was here for the very first time and talked about the message and how important it was, and actually a person who lives in the political world.
Oh, okay.
And just was very gracious and appreciative about our approach in terms of with the election coming up, and that the context for this, the immediate context for this, has to do with the election coming up and all the stuff that's going on. But she said, I loved that you said, be strong in the Lord, not be strong with the Lord.
Yeah.
She said, I also wanted you to say, sometimes we think as Christians, we need to be strong for the Lord.
Oh, yeah.
That it's like, oh, we've got to have God's back. We've got to speak up. God doesn't need us to defend him. Which I thought that was a really, really good insight, and particularly in the context of the political election coming up. Lots, I think, of believers believe, oh, no. I've got to pound the table. I've got to stand for what's right. I've got to be strong for God in this. And I think it's really helpful to recognize we need to be strong in the Lord.
Yeah. And like I said, like it's got nothing to do with me. Like I am, like I have no part of this. Have you ever seen I keep referring back to children's ministry. That's fun. I'm a teacher. That sounds fun. But where they have the flashlight and you're just the mirror and you're reflecting God's light, Good. So that's what that makes me think. I'm just standing here showing everybody what he's done for me and his good character and everything about him. So
I do have a question.
Sure. Okay.
Did you grow up singing Stand Up for Jesus?
No.
So you didn't know that hymn at all? No kidding.
Yeah. Well, I feel I don't know why. I don't know if it's just my age or the generation, but we have some. We sang Father Abraham. You know that one? That's a good one. I Am a Sea.
Those are those hymns. Yes, I do.
Oh, I'm not saying hymns, but I'm saying growing up, those are the kids' songs. But other than that, we just have those weird kids' songs.
Generation not being in adult worship.
Oh no.
And doing the hymnal thing.
No, or we had modern.
There actually, as I was working on the message, I had 3 different songs that I really wanted to quote, old hymns, because I grew up, and in college especially, I grew up. I've talked before about my my background, and when our church underwent the charismatic renewal stuff in the 70s and started singing choruses, we didn't sing hymns anymore. So I had hymns in worship as a elementary age kid because we didn't have children's church. We sat there and listened and were good.
Sorry, I'm sure it was
but I like to sing, so we sang all those, and I had favorite hymns, that kind of stuff. But when I went to college, we sang hymns in chapel, and we had chapel 2 days a week, and then I was a music minister.
Yep. I like hymns too.
Yeah.
I really do.
Lots and lots of substance. So I just kept thinking if anyone has this reference point or still has hymnals around, there's stuff that I wanted to talk about out of a hymn called Soldiers of Christ Arise. And put your armor on, stand in the grace of God alone. There's just so much good stuff.
Does Jamie watch the podcast?
I don't know, but
have people say that we want to listen to hymns.
Jamie doesn't have strong hymn experience, and then
they make them modern though too.
Do you know Onward Christian Soldiers?
Yes, I do.
I actually looked at that because there's tons of stuff in that that's really interesting, and the story behind that, many hymnals eliminated that because they felt it was too militaristic and too aggressive and all that kind of stuff. And what's really interesting is that hymn was written for children, because there was like a regional festival kind of thing, and the guy who worked with the kids wanted them, as they walked to this other village, to have something to sing as they walked so that they could march to.
Yeah.
So, onward, Christian soldiers.
That's so
marching
funny.
as to war. But there's lots of imagery in there that's just really cool.
Yeah.
So,
I love all Christian music. I mean, listen to 99.7, 88.1, all of those, all of that. I've categorized it though. There's some that's like kind of like, I don't know, like hype Christian music. Like this is like talking about God. Like I'm getting fired up. Like he is so cool. Like think of all, like, and then there's other things that are like more slow. Like, yes, creation is, so great.
Yeah.
Like and then there's, for when you're sad, for when you're happy. It's cool. I mean, that's really a genre that does it all,
Yeah. Where are we?
35.
35. Just one last story from our Oregon trip. So we go to this church in Bend, Oregon. That was really cool. One of the guys on staff I knew very casually from, he was here in Lansing up till, 7 years ago, something like that. So I just knew him a little bit. When I knew that we were going to Oregon, he helped connect me with a place to stay, which was cool.
Gotcha.
But the church we go to has grown from 700 to 1,800 in 2 years. So I said, why? And he said, well, Oregon is just full of the whole animism, mysticism, all kind. He said it permeates everything. And we're a church that's just preaching the Bible, and people are hungry for something that they can hold on to. He said, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. But the guy who led worship is in a country western band, and he is a country singer that's like, I don't know enough country music guys, but it's like this heavy drawl. It just was really, really fun because it's so different than what we do.
Yeah. Well, even like with hymns too.
Yeah.
Praising is praising.
So the last song that we sang was How Great Thou Art.
Ooh,
so you've got this country guy singing, Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder. It just was a really, really cool thing.
Yeah.
So being there to worship was terrific. It was lots of fun. And I didn't get a chance to say this in the message, but when I talked about how do you get strong in the Lord, part of it is being in the body to worship. It's being committed to not just go to church, but to engage your mind and to have this sense of, God, who do you want me to talk to?
That's why I sit in the back.
As long as you just don't run out afterwards.
You got to catch them. It's a big auditorium.
That's right. But you have this sense of the greater thing. I just lost my train of thought in terms of where I was going with that.
And probably like learning the character of God too. Like I know, like I keep bringing it back to myself, but like I know that God is not out to get me or.
Yeah. He loves you.
Yes.
This is where I was going with that was it's really easy on vacation I'm a pastor, and to think, you know what, I have a Sunday that I don't have any responsibilities. It would be really nice for us to just leave early and go hike in the mountains. And that could be incredibly refreshing and very much centered in experiencing God. But we made a commitment to go to church that morning because that's a value for us. And we were incredibly blessed by that, probably more so than if we had gone out and gone hiking or whatever. And I just want to say that as an encouragement. Again, when I ask myself the question, how is it that you're strong in the Lord? It is being immersed in Scripture, no doubt about that. But it's also having people around you who can help you sort through the stuff from a healthy perspective. And if you wait until you're in crisis to have those people around you, it's too late. You've got to have relationships with people that you care about, people that care about you, that can carry you when you hit the crisis. If you wait for the crisis, it's too late.
Yep, because a lot of people, classic overthinkers, then you're like, oh, I probably talked too much, or oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like, so when you have people, they're like, they don't care if I say that. They don't care if I cry. You know, like those are your people.
Yeah, and even in the content, you know, so again, I said it, and I know that this is really probably more meddling than preaching, but for lots of people, it's like, do we want to go to life group tonight? I'm feeling kind of tired. I got a little cough.
I think it's just honest, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've got to put in the time to have the relationships to sustain you. So hang in there. Go to worship. Be in life group.
Yeah.
Go all the time. Make it a priority. Amen.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think we covered what we wanted.
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. Or
and if you don't think so, please submit questions.
Right.
If you didn't like this, we need some help. Okay.
And you're going to be the podcast host from now on. Is that true?
We didn't talk about. All right, guys. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and we'll see you on Sunday.